She didn't ask for luxury, just a simple glass of water. But as the flight attendant passed her for the third time, smiling at others, making small talk, and offering drinks, Margaret Ellis began to feel something heavier than thirst settle in her chest. Her husband kept still, his expression calm but distant. Her son sat silently in the back of the plane, unaware that his carefully planned anniversary surprise had yet to reach them. Margaret adjusted the cuffs of her powder blue cardigan, the one with delicate pearl buttons that her daughter once said made her look regal. She had chosen it for this flight because it made her feel good, dignified. Her husband, Harold, wore his Sunday shoes, the ones he had polished the night before while humming an old gospel tune under his breath. Their son, Jordan, had saved for months to book them a first-class trip to Washington, D.C., a gift for their 45th anniversary. It was the first time they'd flown anything other than coach. They weren't used to the wide seats or the linen napkins, but they embraced it all with quiet gratitude. All they hoped for was a peaceful flight and maybe something cold to drink. The cabin was serene. People murmured to each other, laughed gently, and clinked glasses filled with wine. The flight attendant, a tall woman with a tight blonde bun, breezed through the aisle like a performer on a stage. She addressed the gentleman in 1C as Mr. Lathrop, offered him a second glass of Merlot, and chuckled at his joke. She turned, walked past the Elises without a glance, and continued on. 10 minutes passed. Margaret leaned slightly toward her husband. Did they say when drinks were coming? Harold shook his head. Let's wait a little longer. The attendant returned, distributing warm towels and checking on other passengers. Margaret pressed the call button discreetly. It blinked above them. No one came. After a few more minutes, Harold pressed it again. Eventually, the same attendant appeared. Her expression was tight, her tone flat. Yes. Harold responded with quiet courtesy. Could my wife have a glass of water, please? The attendant blinked once. We'll get to you, she said and disappeared down the aisle. Margaret let out a slow breath. Harold reached for her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Around them, passengers were served again. Wine, juice, fresh towels. They received nothing. Margaret closed her eyes for a moment. The cabin air wasn't hot, but it felt stifling. When she opened them again, her husband was staring at the window, his jaw slightly clenched. She knew that look. It was his way of staying calm, while something inside him began to bend. The attendant walked past again, pouring wine and folding napkins into triangles. Let me know if you need anything, Mr. Wexler, she said warmly to a man 2 rows ahead. She walked past them again without a word. Maybe we're not on the list, Margaret whispered. We are, Harold replied, his voice quiet and steady. Across the aisle, someone received another towel. The scent of hot food drifted from the galley. Harold's stomach growled softly. Margaret reached into her purse, pulled out a peppermint, broke it in half, and handed a piece to him. They act like we're guests at a party where nobody saved us a seat, she murmured. Margaret tried not to let the hurt show. She had faced bigger battles in life. But this was the slow burn of being erased in plain sight. No one insulted her. They simply didn't see her. That kind of disregard didn't scream. It whispered. And it hurt more because it was wrapped in civility. Harold sat back, unmoving, his eyes on the seatback screen, but not watching. She could tell he was revisiting an old hurt, one he hadn't spoken about in years, like that hotel in Chicago where they were overlooked by the front desk clerk until younger, wealthier-looking guests had all been helped. He had swallowed his frustration then, and he was doing it now. A younger male flight attendant passed with a tablet. He stopped at 1A to confirm dietary needs. He never looked their way. Harold asked softly, still nothing? Margaret shook her head. Not a drop. In seat 29D near the back, Jordan Ellis checked his phone again. No photo. No delivery confirmation. Nothing. He had arranged it all. Champagne, flowers, and a handwritten card. Happy 45th anniversary. You made love look easy, Jordan. The airline had confirmed everything. He had spoken to his supervisor personally. And yet, nothing. He refreshed the airline app. The message read, pending delivery. Something felt wrong. Jordan, dressed plainly in jeans and a hoodie, wasn't a man who caused scenes. He had built his career on discretion, working quietly behind desks with clearance levels few ever knew about. But now his fingers hovered over his phone screen, his instincts tingling. Years in federal service had taught him to trust that feeling. Something had gone sideways. He typed into the onboard chat. Can you confirm if the anniversary package for Mr. and Mrs. Ellis in 2A/2B has been delivered? The response, delivery will be attempted shortly. That didn't make sense. The flight had been cruising for over an hour. He checked the seating chart. His parents sat just a few rows from the galley, yet were being ignored like they didn't exist. In first class, Margaret adjusted her cardigan. Her fingers were cold. Her heart ached, not from neglect, but from the sinking realization that their son might believe they were being treated well. And he had tried so hard. She looked at Harold. Maybe we should press the button again. He shook his head. They know we're here. Harold's voice was steady, but his chest was tight. Not from rage. From restraint. He had spent a lifetime knowing when silence kept them safe. Margaret leaned back. She could feel the bruise forming, not on her skin, but in her spirit. The kind of bruise that comes when your dignity is chipped away quietly. And then, the final blow. She saw the same flight attendant pull a silver-wrapped box from the front cabinet and hand it to the passenger in 1A. That was their surprise. She was certain. She whispered, "Harold, did you see that?" "I did." They didn't speak again for a long while. Back in row 29, Jordan stood. Slowly, deliberately, he walked down the aisle. The blonde flight attendant saw him approach. "Sir, this area is for first-class passengers." Jordan reached into his pocket, flipped open a leather wallet. His FBI badge gleamed under the cabin lights. "Special Agent Jordan Ellis. I'm speaking with my parents." She blinked. Words failed her. He stepped past her without waiting for permission. In row 2, Margaret looked up, startled. "Jordan." He crouched beside her seat. "What's wrong?" she whispered. "They never brought it, did they?" She hesitated. "No. But it's okay." "It's not," he said. "Please don't make a scene." He looked between her and Harold, then at the tray, still empty, still dry. Jordan stood. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He approached the galley. "I need to speak to the flight supervisor." When asked why, he answered in clipped, professional terms: service discrimination, denied amenities, unequal treatment. The supervisor came quickly, an older man with tired eyes. Jordan spoke evenly, listing each failure, naming the ignored requests, the missed delivery, the empty tray. The man looked stunned. Not defensive, just cornered. "I'll speak to them now," he said. He apologized to Harold and Margaret, voice low, eyes avoiding contact. "There's no excuse. We are correcting it immediately." Jordan stayed a moment longer, took photos of the tray, the sealed towels, the untouched napkins. He wasn't gathering drama. He was gathering facts. The apology wasn't enough. But it was something. Minutes later, a tray arrived with 2 crystal glasses of water, garnished with lemon. Chilled. Delicate. Margaret sipped slowly. The water was cold. But the hurt hadn't left. Later, another attendant, an older black woman named Diane, approached. "Mr. and Mrs. Ellis, I wasn't working your section. But I want to say, we should have done better." "I'm sorry." Margaret nodded, surprised. "Thank you. That means a lot." Diane turned to Harold. "Anything you need, I'll see to it." He replied quietly, "Just honesty." Jordan returned to his seat. No badge now. No flash. Just his presence. When Margaret looked at him, she whispered, "You were the right kind of loud." Jordan met her eyes. "I learned by watching you stay strong." The plane landed an hour later. A smooth touchdown, but for them, it felt like punctuation. At the gate, 2 airline officials waited. They apologized, promised investigation, offered a private car. "We're reviewing crew behavior," they said. "We're deeply sorry." Jordan replied calmly, "This will be documented." Not handled quietly. That night, at the hotel, Margaret stood by the window. She looked out at the city lights and knew they had been seen. Finally. Not because they demanded it, but because they stopped letting silence be mistaken for consent. And somewhere behind her, her son zipped his badge back into his bag, not because the fight was over, but because the next one was already waiting. And this time, they'd be ready.